Good afternoon, everyone from the UK, and good evening, everyone from here, from Vietnam. My name is Anh from the VNIES, the Vietnam National Institute of Educational Sciences. It is my honor to be here today with my colleagues, Dr. Lavinia, Hirsu, Dobrochna, Futuro from Glasgow University, and Miss Nguyen, a teacher from Dien Lower Secondary School, Bắc Ninh Province, Vietnam, to share with you on how we have integrated the art-based methods as the framework of our teaching in our recent projects called Vietnam Arts-Based Language Learning. Our project is among one of the 5 task projects we call activity groups funded by British Council that carry out between January 2022 to April 2023. Our project is included an international team from the University of Glasgow, UK, and the Vietnam National Institute of Educational Sciences. The leaders and English specialists from the departments of education and training of 3 provinces of heritage culture richness in different parts of Vietnam. We have been working with 36 facilitators, 14 local artists, and 329 teachers in 18 collaborative groups. Our teachers are our 5 minority ethnic groups that have brought the wealth of ideas to our projects. So next slide, please. Our project aims to develop teachers' capacities to teach English across modes, medias, and language boundary with creative and arts-based resources with 3 main goals. And we encourage teachers and students to explore language learning and teaching in innovative and creative ways. We believe that language learning is not just about the target language that we attempt to teach, to learn or teach, but the language learner acquired a new language from enriched, safe, and inspiring and motivating environments. And by putting together all our abilities, expertise, and across language learning, cultural heritage, and the arts, we have created resources that will continue to the rich results for our teachers and students. Next slide, please. Our project includes 3 phases. In phase 1, we train the artist and the facilitator from June to July 2022, and that's our artist and facilitator are prepared the tasks, including new knowledge production and sharing practices. And phase 2, we continue to work in August 2022 to March 2023. Each of the 18 tasks met monthly to develop new activities and exchange ideas for language teachings and learnings. And monthly training session supported the development of tasks contents with the facilitators and artists' contribution. And phase 3 is a project evaluation resource and festival. We conducted from March until March to April 2023. And in this phase, the project is monitored and evaluated, celebrated in a hybrid festival. And we have a disseminated resource book, the booklet for the teachers. That is online resources, and we have been disseminated in wider public. And next phase, I would like to invite my colleagues, Dr. Lavinia, Hirsu, continue. Lavinia, your turn, please.
For some reason, the connection dropped online, but thank you for confirming that you can hear me now. So we brought in expertise from the research side. We brought in expertise from local artists whom we invited to join the teacher activity groups. And these were activity groups that were facilitated by teachers that we have worked with before the groups started. So they became facilitators of their groups. As part of our integrated pedagogical framework, we had a couple of pillars that sat behind the activities that we have developed. And these are the 4 pillars of our project. We were interested in integrating cultural heritage and arts-based methods, and I was very happy yesterday to hear in the plenary opening speech about the importance of culture, and culture came up as a theme in many other contexts, in many other presentations yesterday and today. We have integrated multiple modes and media as part of our framework. We have series of translanguaging and translingual pedagogy, and we have tried to integrate them sometimes explicitly for the teachers, but sometimes implicitly embedded in the kinds of activities that we were asking artists and teachers to develop together.
Coming back to translanguaging, there are various conceptualizations and interpretations of translanguaging, and I won't repeat it. People online can read it on the screen. There is a very early conceptualization of translanguaging as planned and systematic use of 2 languages for teaching and learning. There is also a conceptualization proposed by researchers in the US who look at the deployment of speakers' full linguistic repertoire without adherence to socially and politically defined boundaries of named languages.
Lavinia.
But what we also looked at in our project is the conceptualization of translanguaging as the process that involves different languages, language varieties, and other cognitive systems. But most importantly, translanguaging as a process of knowledge construction that makes use of, but goes beyond languages towards other semiotics, towards other modalities. So this conceptualization of translanguaging is strong enough to hold not only languages, but also interpretation of, sorry, I still some sort of an echo.
Okay. No, that's fine.
Okay, so we were able to talk about translanguaging as encompassing art and creative methods. And why art? Art because art requires and enables personal input. And you cannot really create an artwork or anything art-related without the personal engagement. So when we ask children to do such a simple activity as drawing their family, still they need to include aspects of their own experience, aspects of their own life in their drawing. Again, art is inclusive. You can engage at various levels, approach work from different angles that feel comfortable to you and share your experiences and knowledge through art. And I will talk a little bit about the exquisitive corpse activity in a minute. Art is ambiguous, and this is great because it enables multiple non-exclusive meanings. Therefore, it is a great conversation starter, but it also opens a space for non-confrontational negotiation of meaning. And this is what really the language is about. And art is symbolic in nature. And this symbolic nature of art draws attention to the symbolic nature of language again. So, thinking about art, we thinking about art this way reminds us, and working with art reminds us about the fact that word making is actually word making. Because when we are talking, when we are using languages, we are actually creating a world around us. And Trump talking about building the wall. We also talk about breaking the wall. And this influences the way we are creating the world around us. So in our project, we looked at art as content and at art as medium. And teachers were comfortable. We could see that teachers were comfortable with using art as content. And you can see here a picture of the pagoda. When you use art as content, you talk about artifacts, about cultural objects, about cultural practices, traditional songs, you talk about paintings, you talk about dancing. But when you talk about art as medium, you talk about art in the making. So what we did, we proposed activities through which children were asked to make art. And this is actually an example of the exquisite corpse, where children were asked to draw a portrait of a monster and then name different parts of the monster in any languages they know. So then, building on it, teacher could work with them to facilitate their learning of words they really wanted to learn. They needed for the creation of this monster, for talking about this monster.
And we have Lan, who is one of the teachers involved in our project online from Vietnam, who's stayed up quite late for this presentation. We'll see if we can bring in Lan at this point. And Lan is going to talk very briefly about her teacher's perspective as someone who's taken part in this project. And as you can see in our presentation, we talked quite a bit about art, but art is integrated with language, so they are all intertwined. It's just that we're putting more emphasis on art as being one of the vehicles and mediums to which we build language learning. Lan, if you can unmute now very quickly, and we'll try sound, see if we're lucky this time.
You mute there.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? I can hear very well, but I'm not sure if you can hear me or not.
Yes, Lan, we can hear you.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, now I can start, right?
Yes, go ahead, Lan.
Yeah, thank you, Lavinia, and thank you for having me here in this very special conference. And hello from Vietnam. For me, translanguaging is a new concept. From what I learned in TAG's project, now it becomes a new creative way to teach English by connecting languages, modes, media, and cultural forms that help students reflect on. And I think students may find it less stressful and easy to understand the language they are learning because drawings and other art forms engage students. All of those promote students' creativity and creates a learning environment where students can use what they know to learn English. I used translanguaging to teach vocabulary, expressions. Even in grammar lessons, it made the lessons less stressful. When I used exquisite corpse and drawings, stories, etc. For example, with the exquisite corpse, students used it as a way to learn body parts, and they used their imagination to think about body parts that are not conventionally taught in regular classes. They used their imagination and dynamics as well to identify these parts. From what I applied in my lessons, I could see the impact of translanguaging approach as follows. Translanguaging supported creative language learning, and it increased students' motivation. Also capture many of the activities that teachers were already engaged in. And translanguaging validated teachers' practices and provided a rationale for using other languages in the classroom. I think that as a TAC member, or what I have learned in this project, it's very useful for me to teach in English lessons. Yeah, that's something. And now I think that Lavinia will show you more. Yeah, over to you, Lavinia.
Thank you so much, Lam, for sharing that. So what's there are a couple of things that that we're taking away. First, I just wanted to give you some examples of the projects that students created in this across the project. So they've created artifacts, because translanguaging is about doing. Translanguaging is about art in the making, and it's about action. One of the things that we didn't expect was the interest in sustainability. So here you see lanterns that were designed and put together by the students from recyclable paper cups. And there, you know, you have the lollipops, you know, the sticks that were collected and used to build houses and future houses, you know, houses of the future, or representation of the students' houses. Here you see a traditional instrument being described by one of the students. So a lot of the artifacts and things from the communities that students were part of, that were being brought into the classroom and depicted and presented to their colleagues. Here you have a drawing of the puppet theater, which is a long tradition in Vietnam. So here you see not only the aesthetic of the language, but also the aesthetic of the drawings themselves. It takes a particular type of character as part of the puppet theater. Here's a poem that combines two languages, so as a way to build the vocabulary. And then we had ethnic fashion shows, or even descriptions of attires, you know, ethnic costumes, and the descriptions there in English, or cultural places in Vietnam that were presented both in English and in Vietnamese. So different takes on how translanguaging can be put into practice. When we asked our teachers what their thoughts were on the relevance of translanguaging as part of our framework, you can see that many of them considered it as being quite relevant or very relevant for their practice. But also, we encountered many challenges, and these challenges are very important to consider whenever we're thinking about implementing something new in a context that where this concept or the ideas that we're carrying are new and challenging for that particular context. And in our case, the ideas that we were sharing with our participating teachers were sometimes difficult because of the curriculum. The teachers had long lists of activities, exercises that they needed to do. The classes were fully packed, so it was very difficult to find the time. So a lot of the pushback and comments that we received from our teachers were, we love these ideas, they are great, but when do we find the time? So the whole idea of how you structure a class and how do you create time for creativity, for thinking, for, you know, thinking out of the box. There was also the issue of professional training. Many of our participating teachers said, I'm not an artist. I'm not I'm not a trained painter. I'm not a drawer. So how can I integrate those techniques, strategies, and activities in my classroom if I'm not confident in these? So we had to work and build confidence, build, you know, trust in the idea that you don't need to be an artist in order to integrate arts-based methods in your class. And also cultural challenges. The reason why I'm wearing this dress is because this is the awardai that many of the teachers wear in the classroom. So being a teacher in Vietnam comes with a full package of the authority of the teacher, how the teacher is perceived in the classroom, how knowledge circulates from the teacher to the students and between the students themselves. And in order to implement something new, then you need to look very deeply into these embedded assumptions about what it even means to be a student and a teacher in that particular context. One of the things that we discovered, for instance, was that many of our creative ideas were pitched towards having artifacts designed and put on walls. And then in September, when we visited some of the classrooms, we realized that the walls were actually large windows because there was a need for air to circulate. So that changes the activity, right? You cannot put things on the walls if you have windows. So it's even these very basic things that kind of make you rethink the practice and the change that you want to implement. So what have we learned from this project? Change requires a gentle approach. Change requires time for professional growth. This was one of the most precious things that we have learned from our teachers. And then even the smallest changes are critical because they build the confidence gradually in what teachers can do and in how they want to adapt and change. No new critical concept or theory meets an even or linear ground. So the notion that translanguaging as a concept is transportable and it's implementable in lots of contexts needs to be taken and contextualized. And this is not a new idea. This is something that we've picked and shared and seen in previous presentations as well. But seeing the impact of change and seeing how the work that we have done with the teachers has impacted the teachers themselves, but also the students, who now come and ask teachers for more of these activities. That in and of itself becomes hopefully a sustainable catalyst towards more change in the future. We want to share our resources. We have an active website that you can go to. As a result of this project, we have designed a resource book that captures a little bit about our journey, our philosophy of the project. There's so much that we have embedded and we want to share with you. And the technology was not our friend today. So hopefully, if we have managed to share 1% of the work that we have done, we will be happy. That's the QR code for the project. But please feel free to get in touch and ask us questions. Thank you for your patience.